I wasn't really sure what to watch this year for Halloween. I know that I can always watch the Cowboy Bebop movie again, but I was kind of thinking that, maybe this year I watch something a little more spooky. So that's why I picked another anime. Get it? Another anime? Because it's called, 1998. Koichi has just transferred to a new school in the small city of Yomiyama. At first, the students seem like pleasant people, even going out of their way to visit him at the hospital before he starts his first day. But every so often, they ask him an odd question, or respond to him with a cryptic phrase, or just act weird. But the weirdest thing about this school is Misaki, a pale-skinned girl with dark hair, a blood-red eye, and the other covered with an eye patch that no one else beside Koichi can see. And when he inquires about her identity, his classmates tell him to leave it alone. But that just piques his curiosity. He starts investigating this girl, and gradually, he learns about the horrifying, grim circumstance of Class 3-3. 25 years ago, this class invited death into their presence by pretending that someone who died didn't actually die and was still there with them in the classroom all the way to graduation. And every year since, for each month of the school year, a number of people in Class 3 and their immediate family members die. Another starts off as this suspenseful, creepy kind of show with an eerie atmosphere and a major mystery packaged with plenty of misdirection and graphic death scenes. By the way, I'm going to be showing a lot of the deaths in this series, so if you don't want that spoiled for you, it's been real. And now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the money shots. PA Works did not spare a single dime animating every last gruesome detail that stimulates the sickos like me. The panicked looks, the twitchy movements, the blood physics, it's all there. Well, not everything's there. You don't see much bone or entrails and such like with some other gory things I've covered in the past. It's pretty much just blood and I'm not talking sea. But it was gory enough to get banned in China, like Blood Sea, so yeah, it is pretty brutal. This is the main thing people remember about this anime, and while having memorable stuff is a positive, this isn't exactly the compliment you might think it is. At a certain point, the show ditches the slower, more suspenseful presentation and goes all in on the gore, abandoning the main mystery that got people hooked in the first place. That being the mystery of the creepy eye patch girl no one else can see. A girl who is, ironically enough, the most memorable character of the show. It's mostly the eye patch. The other characters range from bland to upsetting, with Koichi probably being the most upsetting. Not because he's annoying or anything, he's just not much of anything, and he's supposed to be the main character. You'd think that he, as an avid horror reader, would offer an interesting perspective to the spooky shenanigans going on in his new city, but at most, he's a little more curious than the average person, and he's also got a health condition that rarely comes into play. He is fairly proactive at the start, even solving one big mystery using the clues at his disposal and a few friends in the right places, but after around episode 4 or 5, he basically goes from protagonist to passenger. He doesn't make any major discoveries or deductions, there's always someone else who just gives him the answer, often without him even needing to ask the right questions, which is frustrating. Another thing that's frustrating about Another is that the characters don't act the way you'd expect them to, and a lot of things don't make a lot of sense once you sit down and do a big think. Some of the most common questions over the years from people who have seen the show include, why hasn't the school shut down if half a dozen or so of its students have been dying each year for 25 years straight? Why don't the parents do anything about this or, in response to it? Why do the records change even after being written down or recorded? Why do the memories of someone seeing the extra person being killed before the curse starts killing people not get altered, but the memories of someone killing the extra person after the curse starts do get altered? Why does Misaki's fake doll eye let her see death on people, and why does she wait until the very last episode to tell Koichi about that one little thing? The thing that would have saved everybody? But most importantly of all, why is there a beach episode?
女は化けるもんだな。あんなちんちくりんの小娘がな。
Actually, I don't mind the beach episode. I know a lot of people call it filler nonsense, but it does actually give you some important details about the rules of the curse, and it does give you a few subtle clues for the big twist in the last episode. Plus, it's got a neat fake-out death scenario, and it does give these characters some quality time together, which is kind of necessary if you want me to care at all about their demise. I mean, it didn't work, but it was a good effort. There's actually quite a lot of things in this show that I want to defend because, it's got the right idea, it just does the least interesting thing with it. The random dance sequence in episode 6, that could have worked if it actually happened and wasn't just a dream that served absolutely no purpose. And then there's everything that happens in the mansion, which is honestly just a big meme. Now, the idea was clearly to have a big finale, and that requires doing something really big. I respect that. But what they ended up doing was something really silly. The thing you need to understand about Another is that it is not incompetent. The show understands how to use eerie visuals and unnerving audio to keep you on edge. The first 4 episodes in particular do a wonderful job on this front, and those episodes barely have anything graphic besides the doll with the nipples. But what I mean is that no one even dies in this show until the very end of episode 3, and it's not boring until that moment. There's plenty of stuff that's going on that gets you invested. The show also knows not to rush through things. When the first death scene happens, it doesn't just move on to the next set piece, it lingers on the scene and shows you its effect on the characters. Now, I'm not trying to say things used to be perfect. There were still some issues from the very beginning, like an over-reliance on typical horror cliches such as phones cutting out inconveniently, but even the worst sins at the start are a far cry from the stuff that happens at the end. Now, from episode 5 onward, there's a bigger focus on constant spectacular fatalities, but I don't think this is to the detriment of the show. For one, they're very well done in terms of animation, but for another thing, most of these deaths had a level of realism to them. Not in the sense that you're likely to die in any of these ways, but more so that they took place in a place you've likely been in. Even if what actually happens in the show is kind of absurd, it feels familiar. You've likely already been acquainted with that scenario in real life, or at least one similar to it, and so the next time you find yourself in that scenario, you remember the corresponding scene, which yes, arguably is somewhere on the silly spectrum, but tucked away in there is a small amount of genuine dread. But now compare that to the last 2 episodes with their fiery, over-the-top battle royale on a hilltop mansion complete with a knife-wielding maniac and all the kids going psycho. It's a bit much. You'll notice how more people die in these last 2 episodes than the entire rest of the series, and I couldn't tell you any of their names. I don't even know if they got names, because their only purpose was to die for the sake of horror, and the manner in which they die is borderline comedic. I really have no idea how you're not supposed to laugh at some of these deaths. I mean, it's got perfect comedic timing and everything. Like, this has to be intentional. I guess we could talk about the character designs now. They're okay. I guess, on the whole, they are subdued and familiar, which I'll gladly take over something loud and distracting. They also do a pretty good job at quickly conveying each character's personality. He's the energetic one, so he's the one with longer, wild hair. She's the tsundere one, so she's the one with twin tails. Our protagonist is meant to be the self-insert, so that's why he looks so generic. As for the OST, it underscores the anime well, but outside of the show, it doesn't really do much for me. I'm not really a fan of the opening either. It doesn't really fit the vibe of the anime, but I'm also not much of a fan of Ali Project in general, so As for the English dub, I only listened to a few sections here and there, and it sounded a little unserious.
I think I might have fucked up!
This might actually add to the entertainment value of the show, so if you want to watch it that way, don't let me stop you. You could always read it too, that is a viable option. Another actually started out as a novel. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. There's also the manga that it got shortly after, and then finally this anime. Each version is basically the same story, but there are some notable differences like how people die, or which people die, or where in the story those people are first introduced. There's also more details that are only in the novel, and there's a few extra scenes in the manga you don't see in the anime, although there's also a few extra scenes in the anime you don't see in the manga. I think the anime is the best version, but it's also the craziest version, so make of that what you will. There's also a live-action version that no one ever brings up. Probably because it's not very good. You thought the anime had some wacky deaths? This guy accidentally offs himself with a spoon. But how did they handle the umbrella scene? Yes, very nice. Back to the anime. I don't think it's very good, or at least it's not good in terms of its writing, but, you know, visually, it's pretty solid when it needs to be, and it did always keep my attention, although some of that might just be from my own morbid sense of curiosity. Another has a lot of problems. Believe me, I gave you the short version with minimal spoilers. We'd be here all day if I decided to go in depth, but I just don't feel like that's necessary here. I think it's enough to say that Another is some decent horror schlock, and out of all the horror-related things I've seen, this is the one that stayed with me the most. And isn't that the main goal of any horror story anyway? Let me know what you thought of Another down below, and until next time, Ave Maria, Deus Vult, and a spooky thank you to all the cultured.